your place on fire. Let's get higher. Put a little bit of shit, put a little bit of shit, put a little bit of shit. I'ma make it burn, I'ma make it burn, I'ma make it burn, I'ma make it burn, I'ma make it burn,
Testing. Testing. Testing the mic. All right. It's got to be better by now. All right. Man, you troubleshoot things for 30 minutes and sometimes you just leave yourself muted. But thank you all for tuning into the barracks. Let's get some 07s in the chat. At least the visuals are good. This hat was a good investment. Maybe I should. Yeah, man. Gotta get a hat line going on. But thank you all for tuning into the barracks, your non-Euclidean network. Non-Euclidean intelligence network, bringing you theory, bringing you news, bringing you analysis whenever breaking events are going on around the world. Because y'all, the multipolar Arab world is rising. The multipolar era, which was ushered in by Russia during the special military operation, is now seeing a second pole rapidly ascending, coalescing around this Palestine-Israel conflict. And we have to cut through a lot of noise. Over the past 3 days, there has been no shortage of lies, of misinformation, of propaganda on the side of Western media and mainstream channels, and even alternative channels, right-wing and left-wing grifters alike, hopping onto Twitter and YouTube and other places to spin the conflict that's been going on with the Al-Aqsa flood, Operation Al-Aqsa flood, which began at 6:30 in the morning, Israel time. Military operation, years in the making, launched by Hamas, the political party which represents the Palestinians of Gaza. So it's up to us here to clarify some things. The Gray Zone did a very good stream earlier today, clarifying a lot of context, necessary context about the decades and decades of conflict which have led us to this point. And I feel it is necessary for us to do the same. So, before we get into that, we have a Telegram channel as well. If you're not following us there already, we only got 13 people in the Telegram so far, but hope it's the best place to be to get immediate news aggregation of the topics we'll be discussing on Twitter, on YouTube. There's so much goes down, like just hundreds and hundreds of messages just pouring in on Telegram. This is often one of the more widely used services, especially in conflict zones or in massively surveilled areas like in Gaza. Very popular in Russia, especially for getting out information over the special military operation. So best place to follow the barracks to get the most immediate news on the ground in these conflict zones. With that, let's get into a breakdown of what happened over the weekend. We're going to start with a video here that I had written a post on Twitter giving some deeper analysis of Operation Al-Aqsa flood, comparing it to the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. Max Blumenthal earlier today giving some context as to its relation to earlier struggles like the First and Second Intifada and the ongoing Israeli ground invasions that had been happening over the years. Maybe pull up the video here. But one thing I think is important for us to start off with is a military analysis of
on October
Operation Al-Aqsa flood, the military operation led by Hamas, breaking through the border walls of Gaza, the siege walls of Gaza placed up by Israel over the past several years. Because one thing we need to start doing is pushing back on the idea that Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's not a terrorist organization. It's a political party, a very militant political party. But then again, they are living in open-air ghettos, open-air prisons under one of the longest military sieges, in modern history, if not the longest in modern history. So when you're under that long of an occupation in a war zone, you're going to get a little militant. So we should see this primarily as a military operation, not as a terrorist attack, first and foremost. Here's a pretty good breakdown we got from John Jenkins on Twitter.
On October 7th, during Shabbat, the military wing of Hamas launched a rocket strike on Israeli territory. Militants captured checkpoints and advanced towards Sderot and Ofakim, taking the border garrisons by surprise. Simultaneously, an airborne operation was conducted from the sea and air to insert sabotage and reconnaissance groups into rear areas. A small detachment landed in the major city of Ashkelon, causing panic among the population. Throughout the day, Hamas militants took advantage of the confusion among Israeli forces and successfully advanced into southern Israel. Palestinians managed to capture and destroy over 40 armored vehicles. In the evening, the Israeli military began transferring troops to the southern part of the country, accompanied by bombardments of the Gaza Strip. Residential high-rises and a Gaza mosque were destroyed, along with the homes of Hamas leaders. The main battles unfolded in Sderot during the night of October 8th, where the Israeli army attempted to clear a police station. By morning, the IDF managed to take control of the territory, but fighting in the city continues. Fighters from the Hezbollah group began amassing near the northern border of Israel. On the morning of October 8th, rocket strikes and drone attacks from Lebanese territory began. Israeli radars in the Shabah Farms area were hit. Hamas continues to maintain communication with its forward units, aiming to capture the prison in Ashkelon. Palestinian militants regularly transfer equipment and reinforcements to the border area with the Gaza Strip. Towards the evening of October 8th, Palestinian units moved in a southeastern direction. Fierce battles erupted in Mefalsim and, after an airborne operation, in Zruah. In Palestine, on the west bank of the Jordan River, clashes and protests in support of Hamas have begun. Islamic resistance groups, including Hezbollah, threaten to open a second front against Israel.
So that was a brief overview of the chain of events that went down over the weekend. Very bird's eye view, very broad of the overall events. Official sources from the Israeli side, so you might take those numbers with a grain of salt. There's about 1,000 Hamas militants broke through the siege walls into the Israeli side of the border after launching thousands of rockets out of Gaza to be able to distract border guards long enough to break out on many different fronts, capturing vehicles, capturing many hostages along the way, causing mass chaos in order to occupy many major buildings, even being able to rotate fighters out of the front line back into Gaza, bring out fresh troops as they occupied more and more territory. Some of the more granular details came from a Telegram channel, a Russian military Russian military analyst, who gave us a breakdown literally of the the more granular parts of the operation. This was a huge undertaking. Like, there were not just ground assaults coming out of the border, but there were air assaults and on the sea. And again, these were basically like people dropping out of the sky in motorized paragliders hooked up to giant fans and motorizing paragliders are being able to outmaneuver Israel's navy. Like, they're huge naval ships with nothing but like fishing boats that had external motors on them. There were and a number of videos that came out that the Zionists, neoconservatives, warhawks on Twitter particularly latched onto, because it made for good sensational news, good tabloids, such as the rave that took place within earshot of Gaza that was going on, where more than 200 people at that event were killed by Hamas fighters. Not, obviously not letting people know that a lot of these were off-duty IDF soldiers, or that, informing people that they are in the middle of a war zone at the border of one of the most dangerous and most militarily reinforced borders in the world, and not explaining that it's probably a bad idea to be throwing a rave within earshot of an open-air prison where many of the residents have AK-47s, let alone to taunt those people with a music festival, especially for off-duty IDF members. But they don't want to talk about that. And then more recently, earlier today, there were responses from Israel yesterday and today, specifically the ongoing carpet bombing that's been happening. The Israeli Air Force flying jets over Gaza, indiscriminately targeting civilian buildings, toppling homes, roofs caving in onto civilian families, crushing people to death. It's been the official numbers that have been released, deaths on both sides. As of this morning, it was over 700 Israeli dead, with about 560 Palestinian dead, especially after most of which had happened from the carpet bombings over Gaza in the late response to Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, 91 of which were children killed in the bombings, as reported by the Gaza Health Ministry. So just all around chaos going on over the weekend in occupied Palestine. And before we get into sort of that, like the just pointing out the asymmetrical nature of this conflict and how long it's been going on, like what led us to this point, where we could go. Because that's another one of the lies that U.S. neocons and liberals alike, right-wing grifters on Twitter, all of them just are wanting this to lead to the U.S. what Ukraine was for liberals, Israel being for neoconservative warhawks. So before we get into like how this conflict will most likely escalate, I just wanted to read a statement from Hamas, the political organization, the militant political organization, which launched the attack, and what their justification was. Because for people who don't know, much like the Taliban in Afghanistan, Hamas is the political leadership of the citizens of Gaza. Like they're not like ISIS. As much as Benjamin Netanyahu wants to go on Twitter and declare that Hamas is ISIS, ISIS was not elected by the people of Syria or Iraq. They were insurgents paid and trained by the CIA and installed as the means of terrorizing the local population and committing heinous acts of savagery along the crumbling borders of state infrastructure across the Middle East. Hamas is not that, but a statement. This is here. Let me share my screen again so y'all can see, because I do like this this Twitter account Combate on Twitter posted this statement from Hamas leadership. Getting the statement from Press TV, Iran's state news TV. Go follow at Uphold Reality Combate if you don't already. Hamas statement saying the Battle of Al-Aqsa Storm is a legitimate right for our people to defend themselves, their land, and their sanctities. In light of the continued aggression of the occupation and the silence and failure of the world to put an end to its escalating terrorism and its denial of all the rights of our people and their aspirations to liberate their land and achieve a return to it. Hamas pointed to the brutal war waged by the fascist occupation regime against our people in the occupied West Bank and the policy of segregation, racial discrimination, and ethnic cleansing, in addition to the continuation of the unjust siege of the Gaza Strip for more than 16 years, and the catastrophic effects it has had on more than 2 million Palestinian citizens. Hamas renewed its call to all countries of the world to assume their political and humanitarian responsibilities, to do justice to our people and support their legitimate struggle for freedom and self-determination, and to establish their independent, fully sovereign state with Al-Quds as its capital, and to end the longest and most dangerous ongoing occupation in the world. So that was a breakdown of the statement from Hamas of why they waged this very striking military operation. Just reminding the people who are either Zionist shills or who are apolitical and unfamiliar with the 75-year occupation, that, this is not some long, eternal battle between forces who have been, at war for thousands of years. No, this is a military occupation that has been set up by Britain and the United Nations 75 years ago. Before then, Palestine was 10%, it was 8 to 10% Jewish. There was no ethnic cleansing. There was no war. People were getting along as people do. Pointing out the fact that this is a response to the occupation, the longest in modern history, and one of the most brutal. Specifically, and let me specifically, hang on, Milkman says everyone knows that this dreadlocked witch's name, but can't name a single Palestinian that's died in the last 30 years. Yeah, that was another one of the images that was circulating on online from different tabloid pushers, was that one of the young women who was killed. There were two of them who look very similar. The one Israeli dual citizen who was like killed in the rave, who mainstream media was saying was stripped and raped and all this stuff, when people like Samira Khan and Syrian Girl on Twitter pointing out that no, she wasn't stripped and raped. She was literally wearing that bikini. There was a rave in the middle of the desert. That's what she was wearing. And maybe you don't go to the middle of a rave next to a military siege zone. Like, I'm sorry you were unfortunate enough to be the rave that got attacked when the bullets were flying in the other direction, when they stopped flying from Israel to Gaza, and for the first time in 50 years, you were the rave that got in the way of the bullets flying from Gaza to Israel. Like, that is very unfortunate for you. But I don't know what to tell you. You get into this psychology of entitlement, that because all of the bullets are flying from your side into Gaza, that you imagine that you're not in a war zone. You're still in a war zone. Eventually, the other side is going to shoot back. And the importance of really emphasizing that the fact that this is an Israeli occupation is that the United Nations recognizes, like, there's a legal statute within the United Nations for occupied people under military occupation to resist by any means necessary, including military resistance. People die when you're in an occupied war zone. Yeah, she got caught in the crossfire. This is quite sad. But just because you were unlucky doesn't mean that this was a terrorist attack. And there was another woman who was I don't think she's been confirmed killed, but she was captured by Hamas, dragged into a truck. Steven Crowder actually used the image of that woman as his thumbnail for his. I didn't watch his episode for today because he, like every other right-wing grifter, he'll be pushing to send bombs to Israel, to commit genocide in Gaza. I didn't watch it, but he used the thumbnail of that different woman who people just thought was a random Israeli citizen, because people like Steven Crowder were saying, like, oh, this is a random Israeli citizen who's been kidnapped by the terrorists of Hamas, when she was in fact an IDF soldier who wasn't kidnapped. She was captured. You don't get kidnapped if you're a soldier in a war. You get captured. Particularly if you're a bad soldier, if you're a loser, you get captured. You'll never hear that from right-wing grifters like Ian Miles Chong, like Laura Loomer, Steven Crowder. All of these Zionist shills who were just waiting in the wings, who were just wringing their hands and just condemning, wagging their finger at the liberals for giving $200 billion to the Ukrainian government, who were just waiting in the wings for their opportunity to do the same to Israel. Yeah, Yankee Tanky says, remember, if you are a citizen of Israel, you have to serve in their military. Therefore, most of these people are military targets. Yeah, I mean that's the nature of, and that's the other important reason to emphasize occupation. Like this is not like Israel is not recognized by many countries in the United Nations. Don't recognize Israel as a real country. It's an occupied territory. It's a war zone. So if you go and live on a war zone, that's you do you. I can't stop you. But I myself, I made the decision to move to Atlanta some years ago. When I did, I was doing so knowing that if I move to Atlanta, there's a very real chance I'm going to get shot at. Guess what happened when I moved to Atlanta? Exactly what I expected. So if you want to be some Instagram prostitute and go live on an occupied war zone in occupied territory that some countries in the UN call Israel, that's what you want to do. I can't stop you, but you're probably going to get shot at. It's not a very safe place to be in the middle of a war zone. Sorry. You fell for the psyop that Israel was some safe haven. It's not. It's a military base sitting on top of Palestine. So that was the other, that was the other, sob story that grifters on Twitter wanted to cling to, papering over or actively encouraging the many brutal acts of devastation inflicted by the Israeli government, such as like the carpet bombing of civilian buildings. Benjamin Rubenstein on Twitter, who I suggest you go follow, was doing a lot of good reporting on the issue, going in and out of Twitter Spaces, showing different buildings such as the Ministry of the Ministry of I have it saved here. It's on the Telegram, like, which is another reason why you should go and join the Telegram, so I don't have to remember all of these things myself. The Ministry of Endowments near Al Katiba in the west of Gaza City was a civilian building who people like CNN will say were Hamas enclaves. It was a government building. Another building that was targeted was a telecommunications building that was hit by one of the missiles coming out of Israeli planes. Western media doesn't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the fact that the Israeli Minister of Defense earlier today called all Palestinians human animals and said that they were going to stop sending in fuel, food, and water into Gaza, which, for context, as pointed out by Jackson Hinkle, even during the special military operation, Russia still supplied Ukraine with gas and grain. Like, that's a normal thing to do. In fact, expected, because if you are the main source of food and fuel for a population, and to withhold those things and intentionally starve a population, it's not just a war crime. Like, if with enough targeting, that's an act of genocide. That's inflicting a Holocaust on a people. That's what Ukraine tried to do to Crimea, shutting off their water because Crimea doesn't have any natural water sources going into it. And when they try to target the water supply going into Crimea, that's why Russia occupied the place and took over in 2014 to prevent an actual genocide. And that is what the Israeli defense minister has done earlier today, has shut off all water to Gaza, meaning people within days will start to die, especially after the ruthless bombing. The thumbnail for this video was one of the images taken of Gaza just the other night. The scale, the absolute scale of destruction that is going on from one side to the other just shows that this both sides narrative. Well, first of all, it just shows the bloodthirstiness of neoconservatives like Nikki Haley, who has been railing on Twitter for the past 3 days, saying that we should turn Gaza into a parking lot. But it also points out just how disingenuous this both sides narrative is of I condemn these these Israeli war crimes, but I also condemn Hamas for killing Israelis and taking hostages, when this is the first time in 50 years. To put it into context, the beginning of Al-Aqsa flood, Saturday morning, October 6th, marked the exact 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War in 1973, where that was the last act of military a military offensive that that Palestine had, and the region, Egypt, I think Lebanon, had waged against the occupying forces of Israel. 50 years where the region has been on the defensive, and especially the citizens of Palestine and in Gaza have been on the defensive. Their territory getting smaller and smaller and smaller, being pushed into more crowded ghettos, having to be under the most heavily surveilled open-air prison, the most heavily surveilled area on Earth, shot, bombed, always on the defensive from a position of weakness, as captives for 50 years. And now that the bullets are flying in the other direction, everyone wants to cry both sides now. But that's, we're past this both sides. We're past condemning both sides. No, this is Palestine led by Hamas, their representative political government. That is them operating from a position of strength. And yeah, it's sad for the people who died, but that's the nature of being in a war zone. The fact that the fact that even Russia, during the special military operation, supplies fuel and food to Ukrainians. They were in a grain deal that for months, Ukraine continuing to sabotage the grain deal by attacking Russian ships. They're still supplying grain, still supplying oil. But the Minister of Defense of Israel shutting off water to this strip of land, this ghetto. Yeah, Bang Bang Boyd is right. The body count speaks volumes. Just for comparison, I posted about it a couple of days ago, and it's in my bookmarks here. But just for the past 20 years alone, World of Statistics goes back to 2008. The post I made goes back to 2002. But the UN, the documented death count recorded by the UN. This is not like from some like internal like Israel or Palestinian source. From the UN, the conflict dating back to 2002 was 5,500 Palestinian deaths inflicted by the IDF, approximately 200 Israeli deaths. That's not even in the same ballpark. 210 is a rounding error compared to 5,500, not counting all of the wounded. If you count all of the wounded, World of Statistics goes back in 2008. It was 3,202 on the Palestinian side, 853 on the Israeli side. In 2009, 7,460 dead and wounded on the Palestinian side, 123 on the Israeli side. In 2013, just before the last Israeli ground invasion of Gaza, it was 4,031 dead and wounded on the Palestinian side, 157 on the Israeli side. In 2014, which was the last time Israel did a ground invasion of Gaza, 19,860 dead and wounded on the Palestinian side, 2,796 on the Israeli side. And in that case, it's much higher for the Israeli side because they specifically went for a ground invasion of Gaza. It was this whole military undertaking where they had mass casualties inflicted on them because they went into a suicide mission of going into Gaza, where a lot of where majority of the residents there have or know someone who have AK-47s and small arms, and who shoot informants, giving away positions of armed fighters, because that's the reality when you're under siege for 75 years. And that's why in that particular year the numbers were high as they were on the Israeli side. But again, pointing out just the massive asymmetry, almost 20,000 dead and wounded on the Palestinian side the last time something like this happened. And already Netanyahu has been talking about doing another ground invasion. And this time, Hamas, which isn't even a very particularly powerful militant faction compared to other militant anti-Zionist political factions in the region, such as Hezbollah, especially compared to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but even just like the militant political parties of other small countries and small military powers like Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hamas isn't that powerful, but they've gotten more powerful since 2014. So a ground invasion into Gaza, which is what Israel has been talking about, which is what reptiles like Nikki Haley have been calling for, like Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard's been calling for it. Pretty much everyone in Washington is either doing this both sides narrative, or the neocons specifically, and conservatives coming out for just all-out flattening Gaza. But a ground invasion would be even more disastrous this time. Just think about those numbers from 2014. 20,000 dead and wounded on the Palestinian side, approximately 2,600 on the Israeli side. It'd be even worse for the Israelis this time, because Hamas has only gotten more powerful, and Hezbollah has made the commitment to attack Israel on their northern border should they start a ground invasion of Gaza. The entire Arab world has come out in support of Palestine, and many are now promising military aid should Israel wage this ground war. Disastrous. But still, it's worth pointing out just how multiplied the dead and wounded would be on the Palestinian side. 20,000 in 2014. It would be astronomically higher today, especially considering just how bloodthirsty parties in the U.S. military and U.S. politics are for starting a genocide, a second Holocaust. There are millions of people who live in Gaza. We're just talking about wiping them out. Millions of men, women, and children who are under occupation on their own territory. Yeah, based yellow and green guys can't really give can't really say our true opinions about Hezbollah, but I can report on the fact that just the facts that Hezbollah has made the commitment to attack Israel on the northern border. They've already started escalating military conflict on the border. There's if you remember from the video I showed at the beginning of the stream, there's already been escalating military conflict. Lebanon has evacuated. Earlier today, they've evacuated towns at the southern border because this, Israel only knows how to escalate the conflict and won't back away from this suicide mission of a ground invasion of Gaza. And so Hezbollah will 100% get involved. They are planning to get involved. So southern towns have just been evacuated because they don't want, unlike Israel, who puts their citizens in harm's way, Lebanon has been evacuating their citizens so that they don't get in between the fighting. Just all around shameful situation on the part of Western politicians who are escalating the conflict because they have been so arrogant over the past 50 years of putting Palestine on the defensive. Now that they are in a position of weakness, they have been exposed, and just how embarrassingly weak their military and intelligence apparatus is. Rather than cede any ground to Palestine, they're looking to wage a campaign of all-out extermination. Russia, who's remained neutral in the party, has talked about just reinstating the borders from 1964, I believe. One of the old internationally recognized borders back before the encroaching Israeli occupation broke those old agreed upon borders. Russia, who's trying to remain neutral, wants to go back to that status quo. But the Arab world is completely in line, with the exception of some North African countries like Egypt, who has also remained neutral, and Morocco, who is sold out to Zionist forces. All of the other Arab countries are just in explicit support of Palestine. Hezbollah would not be the only country to get involved here. Iran has committed to getting involved if this ground invasion happens, which it's increasingly likely because of the supreme arrogance of the Likud party in Israel and the corporate uniparty, the war party, in Washington. If that happened, within the past few hours, Ramzan Kadyrov, the leader of Chechnya in the Russian Federation, has promised to send Chechen fighters, Chechen soldiers, to defend Palestine. This is very simple math. Should Israel initiate this ground invasion, they will suffer losses that they haven't seen maybe ever. It's hard to describe just how humiliating this loss was for Israel. Not just for that they have 700 Israelis dead, but from an intelligence side, the fact that this operation was carried out under their noses, huge embarrassment. One of the fact that it's exposed just how inexperienced a lot of the IDF forces are. Members of the military have no combat experience, and over the weekend there were several cases of friendly fire going on. This is because these are very paranoid and inexperienced soldiers who are being, who are getting their asses whooped by, by these poor ragtag Palestinian rebels who are dropping out of the sky in paragliders hooked up to motorized vans and on fishing boats and motorcycles. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking of intelligence, I'm getting some intelligence right now. It's coming in hot. We have a guest here on the barracks. Hold on, I'm getting a connection. No, it can't be.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Yankee Tanky here to tell each and every one of you they are going to see the glory of the victory of Palestine. We are going to see the glory of the comeback of the Palestinian people. Ladies and gentlemen, it is true. They are fighting for their freedom, and they have the spirit of 1776, as we do here in America and on the barracks.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming out of semi-retirement, still technically in semi-retirement, as Semi is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that title. Yankee Tanky, it seems like you have a lot to say about this conflict, specifically you have been waging a war against shills on Twitter, U.S. deep state actors, the people.
Well, there's a
particular
man. There's a particular man. His name is Phil. Doesn't really seem to have a real name beyond Phil. He just has like 3 different names on Twitter. I don't know what the fuck he is, but he calls himself Phil. He's a pretty popular guy, and I believe Haas of Infrared has had a pretty big beef with this guy already. So it seemed very fitting to me that when I disputed the fact of Israel and how Israel is the settlers and Palestine are the freedom fighters, how quickly this Phil decided that, no, I'm going to go and fight back at the Yankee Tanky. Little old me, Mr. 1,400, 1,500 followers on fucking Twitter, Mr. 240 some odd fucking subscribers on TikTok, and just over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Somehow little old me was getting the shit stirred up from this Phil character, and the man had the nerve to fucking block me on Twitter after I called him out for him supporting State Department lies about how Palestine is seizing people to rape them and do terrible fucking things to them. No, we know this not to be true. Syrian Girl has been going out consistently on Twitter, breaking apart how that's bullshit and lies. We know for a fact that this woman that was there, she was already in a bikini, like you already talked about, right? And that's what the alt-right grifters, like this dude here, that's what they keep pushing. They keep pushing this narrative. They push the same CIA propaganda about Ukraine. They're doing the same shit when it comes to Israel and Palestine. It's just a repeat of everything else, except the right-wingers, some of the ones that did say, oh, yeah, we support, Russia, all of a sudden are coming to the aid to the Zionist state. They said, oh, we like to fight Nazis. Why aren't you fighting the Zionists who are Nazis? And that's really why I'm out here. I'm breaking into this shit. It started with fucking Justin Trudeau fucking going and cheering for fucking Nazis. And now we're seeing this shit where a whole Western world is lining up behind the same Zionist powers that are aligned with the Nazis. And that's why I'm fucking out of, I'm in this semi-retirement, not retirement, whatever the fuck you want to call this shit. Because the Yankee Tanky can't fucking retire in peace. I can't fucking retire in peace. Everyone's still on the same bullshit. Everyone is still pushing the state propaganda lies. As soon as we think, oh, like maybe we got some of these right wingers, maybe people like Matt Gaetz, maybe he's actually going to fucking fight. And now he turns around and fucking throws the same bullshit that the liberals were saying about Russia, except now we're putting on Hamas. Now we're putting on Palestine, the actual fucking freedom fighters. Look, for the longest time, I didn't support Palestine because I didn't see them fucking fighting. The same argument I have for Cuba, the same argument I have for Venezuela. But now they're fucking standing up and fighting. So I'm out here fighting these fucks who won't stand in solidarity with freedom fighters are actually fighting for their fucking country. What we should be doing here in the United States, not literally, but metaphorically, we should be fighting this same fight. We should be inspired by the Palestinians.
Yeah, speaking of these psyops, it's amazing just how many just as the Arab world, in Yemen, in Afghanistan, in Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, where the people, like, if not the governments who are neutral, the people overwhelmingly support Palestine. Just how the opposite is true in Western countries who are doing the "I support the current thing" meme. All of these buildings in New York, in Paris, in Australia, like in the Anglo box in Canada, all of these buildings which had projected onto them the Ukrainian flag, all started overnight. Just started having the Israeli flag is broadcasted on them. Genghis Kanye here points out that like the buildings in Germany, like the German Bundestag, which now are broadcasting the Israeli flag, at one point had swastikas draping on them during the Third Reich. So Israel is 100% an extension of the Reich. Like one of the earliest supporters of the project of Zionism were Nazis. Max Blumenthal has a lot to say about that in particular. When people want to say like, oh, but how can Israel? But it's a Jewish state. Are you like? And that's honestly that mental regardation is why we need to get out of this language of morality. Of like, oh, this, but what if this conflict makes me feel bad? Shouldn't we have the moral high ground here? Like, that has like that, yeah, sure. Touchy feely kumbaya morality is nice. What policies does that push forward? What morals supply Gaza with food and water during this intensified siege? What morality ends this 75-year apartheid regime, which has been waging a campaign of extermination? What policies does that push? Who do they benefit? How will they specifically be implemented? Because this "I support the current thing" meme that that the Anglo box is, which includes Israel, is falling lockstep behind, is how you get how you get the country to go into not just another Persian Gulf conflict in the case of the United States, but potentially World War III.
Absolutely.
Like Ukraine has already been like this hotbed of potential escalation to World War III, of like nuclear powers getting involved and shooting at each other with nukes. Israel is another nuclear power where if they do a ground invasion and Chechnya gets involved and Russia has to shoot nukes at Israel, like that's world, like, again, this "I support the current thing" of just like, no, morality is not policy. It's not military analysis here. We're not dealing with, we're not dealing with your porn-addled fantasy land where you can just make an ooh face and people will do what you want. Like, no, peace is not an option. Israel needs to be disbanded. That's the policy. But even if you're
Israel doesn't have a right to exist at all, and by no stretch of the imagination. You know, I made this video earlier, and it turned out to be some misinformation, but it's still fundamentally true in the regards of the theme, the ethos of what it was saying. You know, Israel. You know, you have these evangelical Christians, right? And they support Israel because, in Revelations, like that's where the Messiah is going to come and all that stuff. But let's be very clear. The state of Israel that we see, this is not the state of Israel of the King of David and King of Solomon. This is the state of Israel of Satan. That's what Israel is. It is a satanic entity that must be annihilated off of the face of the planet in the grace of God. That is what we are talking about. The Holy Lands have been corrupted by a satanic element that must be eliminated. And you could say I'm just, on my Alex Jones arc right now or whatever bullshit. But the facts are this, what is Israel producing in the world today? Obvious connections to the well-known pedophile Epstein, right? The assassinations of many political leaders across the world, including one of our own very presidents, JFK. I strongly believe Mossad was involved with that. It wasn't just the CIA. Okay, let's look at the facts that, this is the kind of stuff that they produce, and they produce degeneracy, moral degeneracy. What was that fucking rave in the first place? So everyone's talking about this fucking rave. That is satanic bullshit, right? And these Christians that are going in, just sucking up the propaganda of the globalist elites that support Israel. These people are damning themselves for eternity. That is what these people are doing, because you are siding with Satan himself. That is what Israel is. It is Satan.
Yeah, nobody wants to speak up when it's when ravers are taking drugs, like right on the border of the Gaza Wall, one of the most heavily fortified borders, where bullets only fly in one direction, because they still fundamentally believe in this myth of universal human rights, whatever that means, or rules-based order, where Putin, or the weekend Putin had called out the rules-based order. So, like, what does that even mean? He had said during a speech where, again, these moralizing frameworks, which fly in the face of concrete international law, which fly in the face of preserving human life as it really exists, as it materially exists, like in Palestine, and just having having a rave. Most likely, and this is not the first time that they would have done this, but it was pointed out by Don Bastavushka on. I love Sarah. Like, by the way, go follow DD Geopolitics, DD_Geopolitics on Twitter. Sarah is a firebrand, and we don't deserve her. But she had pointed out that this is not the first time that Israel has done this. Or they have raves on the border within earshot of Gaza all the time, as a way of flaunting their power over them, like as this psychological attack. Like, it's not that you don't get to have this pie in the sky lifestyle in a war zone. There are consequences. I'm sorry that the IDF's TikTok account has got your porn-addled brain like so hyped up that you think that Israel is also a victim in this whole affair. No, what they're doing is evil, and everyone involved, even if they think they're being apolitical, they still decided to fall for the psyop and live in a fucking war zone and do drugs and have gay sex in the desert because they think the universal human rights is worth carpet bombing actual human beings. Like, children are dying because of your morals. Fuck your morals.
Absolutely. It's very clear to me that, a lot of the people that are supporting Israel right now, if you look at a lot of these profiles, these people are degenerates. They're into the drugs, they're into the alcohol, they're into, the pornography, they're into the prostitution, they're into all those things, right? And yeah, sure, most of these people are right wing, but who else I see? Liberals. Mr. Destiny. Sir, I am so sick and tired of seeing Destiny. It's just everything that he could possibly make him even slightly left leaning in any capacity outside of drugs and fucking cuckolds. The Destiny wants nothing to do with that. That's the only kind of leftism he's interested in is cuckoldery. He's not interested in seeing the fucking Palestinians rising into fucking power. Destiny doesn't want that. He just wants to watch his fucking wife in the corner of the fucking bedroom as she's getting fucking plowed. That's all he's interested in. He's just into his kink. Boner socialism as the milkman or milkman. I don't know if he's still putting the in front of it. Anyhow, milkman is right when he coined boner socialism. And that's why I still continue to use that word, because that's exactly what people like Destiny are. They don't care about any type of real liberation. That like Destiny is just a piece of shit. That's just what it gets down to.
Yeah, now that you mention it, he also wanted to throw his hat in the ring and just compare Palestinians to Nazi Germany, which is laughable.
Israel is more like Nazi Germany. Let's just be real about that, right?
And to be clear, and you're right, but not because this is morally true, but because this is historically and materially the progression of Zionist occupation. It was supported by Nazis because to them having this Jewish homeland was this convenient excuse for them to expel all Jews from Germany. And the same, the same technology of surveillance and ghettoization and war that were used by the Nazi parties were adopted by Israel because they're funded by the same people. Like the Nazi Party was funded by British banks, and so was Israeli Zionism. It's the same project, but for different ethnic groups. If people can't see that, it's because they're so entwined in this moral thinking, in this abstraction, that think that just because someone is Jewish means they can't pick up the tools of someone who has caused extinction campaigns in the past and use it for their own personal extinction campaigns.
Absolutely. And, that's just also be very clear because I'm sure a lot of white nationalist Wignats are jumping on this shit and thinking all of a sudden, oh, yeah, we got communists that are finally fighting against, the JQ. No, this has nothing to do with the fucking JQ. Okay. Israel and the Zionists, there are plenty of working class Jews all across the world, and especially here in the United States. We should not be connecting regular Jewish people to what the state of Israel is doing, right? And Haas pointed that out in the Discord earlier today as well. It's important for us to make that clarification because we don't want the white nationalists going and supporting Palestine, pretending they're one of us, right? You know, that's part of the fucking problem. In fact, very oftenly, you know, we've actually already seen this image where, you know, there's this pro-Palestine rally going on in New York City, and some fucking piece of shit is holding up a Nazi flag on their phone, right? And it's the same shit they did at the fucking Freedom Convoy up in Canada, where they were waving, one fucking idiot was waving around a Confederate flag, right? It's so convenient, these people who seem to always get fucking planted inside of a real legitimate political movement. So it's absolutely necessary to make sure, no, we're not interested in these white nationalists. The white nationalists are on the actual same side as fucking Israel and the Zionists.
Yeah, all out campaign to declare persona non grata any of that degenerate fascist garbage. ReZero cult leader says Jordan, Iraq, and Iran need to give military access to Afghanistan so they can liberate Palestine. Yeah, Afghanistan was asking for passage through Iran to be able to get to Palestine. And
Taliban's beast.
I don't know if you saw this, but I was saying earlier in the stream that Ramzan Kadyrov, the leader of Chechnya, also wanted to get involved. This is like, yeah, no, if Israel does a ground invasion of Gaza, I'm also going to get Chechnya involved. And
I mean, and you have that to remember. We also have U.S. fucking warships right now that are coming close to Israel. They're going to be fighting Hamas. We're, ladies and gentlemen, we are walking very close to a third world war right now. Like, this is not just some, you know, small regional conflict. There's a lot of big players that are involved with this. I mean, let's just be real. Palestine, part of the reason why they most likely were able to fight this resistance, and there's a lot of evidence backing this up, is that Iran was likely involved with funding Hamas, supplying weaponry, things of that nature, right? Which, by the way, is only possible because of what Russia is doing, resisting the West in Ukraine. And then even beyond that is only possible thanks to the rise of the Chinese economic system, which very much reminds me of that song that these Palestinians were playing. This is, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago or something like that, that they were singing, you know, Putin, you know,
harden your heart, oh Putin.
Harden your heart, that's right. Like, increase your attacks. That's the world we're facing. Vladimir Putin has hardened his attacks, and now we are watching the multipolar world rise. You know, it's West Africa, it's China, it's Russia, and now it's also the Middle East and Palestine. You know, Saudi Arabia and and Iran are putting aside their differences. You know, they're on the same side of this conflict as well. We'll see how much the rest of the world gets involved with it in the Middle East, but you know, it seems like there's a lot of big players that are moving in that direction. And if the United States is going, the rest of the Arab world might be coming with it.
And this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, is to understand where this is, like, not just, I mean, obviously this is going to escalate on the Palestinian and Israeli side. Like, this is the first time Palestine has been operating from a position of strength for 50 years. Like, like, just like with Russia, why would Russia stop in taking out the Ukrainian, like, Nazi regime? They're operating from a position of strength. Palestine is operating from that same position. Why would they stop? And Israel only knows the language of escalation. So this is, I mean, escalation doesn't necessarily mean a ground invasion, but that's looking likely because these people are supremely arrogant and supremely genocidal. So we'll have to keep y'all informed as it happens. By the way, make sure to subscribe to Twitter and on the Telegram. But that doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, obviously the United States will send money and bombs. But in terms of seeing an escalation of violence over on American soil, I wanted to talk about how this directly relates to our security. not just our wallets, not just sending billions of more dollars to another foreign war, but how it affects our security, is a lot of the same surveillance technology that Israeli weapons contractors, private weapons companies, have used to reinforce the Gaza border, specifically the Elbit Systems, which makes weapons and surveillance technology, which is the largest non-government weapons company in Israel. They also have subsidiaries all over the world, including in the United States. And there are like dozens and dozens of surveillance towers built by Elbit Systems at the U.S.-Mexico border. And in fact, they were just recently awarded, just a couple of days ago, they were awarded another contract to keep building these systems at the border, and it's being touted as this alternative to a border wall, which, in light of the fact that that a ragtag group of fighters in Hamas broke through this flawless defense technology. It's a pretty bad advertisement for Elbit Systems on its face. That's already deeply embarrassing for the United States, who just spent billions of dollars to put this technology at the border. But we're seeing how this translates, how surveillance directly translates to bombings, how as U.S. Republicans and neoconservatives are infinitely more concerned with sending money to escalate the war between Palestine and Israel, they are allowing this border crisis to escalate. And Elbit Systems also makes drone bombs. They have factories in the UK that make drones. It's the same drones that are shipped to Israel to drop bombs on Palestinians. And the fact that we already have the surveillance systems being increased at the border, and it really points out the fact that these surveillance towers aren't meant to. Hey, what's up, Hurricane Ruckus? Good to have you in the chat. Yeah,
Make sure you go and follow his new Twitter, by the way.
Yeah, Ruckus_revival on Twitter. The holy warrior, spiritual warrior, because we are fighting a spiritual battle against Satan, against the great Shaitan. But yeah, the direct correlation between Israeli surveillance and Israeli bombs and drones is being made. Like, that connection is being made in Israel right now. And that kind of escalation is rapidly approaching at the U.S.-Mexico border. Earlier today, Donald Trump posted this on Telegram, and so likely he also posted it on True Social, lying for some reason. The same people that raided Israel are pouring into our once beautiful USA through our totally open southern border at record numbers. Are they planning an attack within our country? Crooked Joe Biden and his boss, Barack Hussein Obama, did this to us. This one, just implying that, like Laura Loomer, who's been raving for the past 3 days, that Hamas has sleeper cells in the United States. As if it was 2002. Like, oh, Al Qaeda has sleeper cells all across the country, and we need to open up concentration camps.
The conservatives are literally just recycling their talking points from 20 years ago. Like, that's what we're witnessing right now.
Literally, yeah. Ruckus saying, like, yeah, Lindsey Graham is going to try and get us all killed by running his mouth. He made direct threats to Iran on national TV. Easy to send young men to die so he can have a fatter wallet. And Lindsey Graham was also one of the people talking about invading Mexico. Trump was doing this. Dan Crenshaw was doing this. a lot of the Republican candidates in the primary, like Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis, also talked about like drone bombing Mexico. Like, yeah, this like the same technology of Israeli weapons and surveillance is being used at the U.S.-Mexico border, not to stop the flow of migration. That wasn't the point, because it's not working, and because they're not doing anything to solve the actual like millions of people crossing the border. Like, it's used, like the point of these surveillance towers is to target target military targets, so that eventually when you start producing drones, like Elbit Systems factories in the UK, is to make it easier to drone bomb people. Like, that's where this U.S.-Mexico border is headed when Trump posts things like this on Telegram, when Laura Loomer is on Twitter, saying that, oh yeah, we should completely obliterate Gaza. That's what neoconservatives want to do to Mexico as well.
I keep hearing, them saying, "Oh, we're going to turn Palestine into a parking lot," right? Well, that's what they want to turn Mexico into as well. Forget the fact that there's a rich cultural history between the United States and Mexico, war aside. There's a cultural exchange between our two civilizations. Ignore all of that entirely. We're going to yeah, and this is exactly what, Israel and Palestine, right? Because at the end of the day, we also know those same kinds of cultural ties exist between Israel and Palestine. It's the paradigm between these two things, the United States and Mexico and Israel and Palestine, are very similar in some ways, minus the lack of occupying land. Uh, there's no reason for us to be going into this escalation with Mexico and utilizing these technologies, but these people don't care. Today and yesterday, Boeing and all of the Halliburton and all these other military industrial complex companies, their stock markets skyrocketed, and all of our congressmen and all of our senators all dumped a bunch of money into these stocks right at the right time. Isn't that convenient? It's almost like there was a little bit of knowledge that this attack was going to happen, and that might have been part of the reason they allowed it to happen.
It's funny that you bring that up. I do think this is worth talking about. H. Ali had talked about this. Yeah, it was Ali. I'm gonna pull it up. Because you sound like Milkman right now, just like, it's like it was an inside job. No one could have like missed this from happening. But while it is true that I just wanted to point out the problem with. It was Benjamin Rubenstein. That's who it was. Benjamin Rubenstein. Here, I have the tweet pulled up. Like, this idea that Israeli intelligence is like this insurmountable thing, this all-powerful, all-omniscient thing. I really liked this tweet. And Milkman, if you're watching, this is at you. I hope you read this tweet by Benjamin Rubenstein, because it does, I think, point out that this idea of Israeli and U.S. intelligence as this infallible, omniscient thing is part of the psychological operation to make them seem like all powerful and eternal. Ben Rubenstein said, a lot of people are spreading what is tantamount to a conspiracy theory regarding the intelligence failure that allowed Hamas to breach the apartheid walls of Gaza. The argument is that it wasn't possible for this to happen without Israeli intelligence knowing, and that the intelligence community did this to basically sabotage Netanyahu and give Israel the excuse to invade Gaza. But it's relevant to dwell on this issue, and it's actually a Zionist talking point. People vastly overestimate Israeli intelligence simply because they export their apartheid technology and have good marketing. So you are right, Yankee, that the Warhawks are making a good profit on the rising stocks, but that says more about like the marketing capabilities of these companies rather than the infallibility of Israeli intelligence. Ben Rubenstein goes on to say, look how incompetent the IDF has been in previous ground wars, and even now. They were just killing each other near the Lebanese border, and they can't even transport their tanks without flipping them over. What makes you think their intelligence is any better? Israel is incompetent. The Palestinian resistance has spent the past 75 years learning how to evade Israeli intelligence. Israel has the same forms of intelligence as anyone else, signal intelligence and human intelligence. Much of the senior Palestinian leadership within the resistance doesn't use phones, and human intelligence assets within Gaza are able to be compromised just like any other asset. I had pointed out in that thread that this idea that these systems are perfect and unbreakable and all powerful and all seeing. It's a wonderful advertisement for companies like Elbit Systems to sell their drone factories in the UK or their surveillance towers at the US-Mexico border, even though these things are, prone to error just like anyone else, or outright garbage.
Well, I mean, to be fair, do you think there's a possibility that, Mossad and Israeli intelligence didn't know anything, but the United States and the CIA did?
I don't think so. There's nothing to suggest to me that happened. I mean, there was a lot that went into this was an operation years in the making. They definitely got Iranian intelligence involved to map out strategies of how to break through the wall. China got involved, just like the company Huawei, the phone company, was saying how a lot of the organizers for the operation were using Huawei phones, which specifically don't allow backdoor entrances to surveil users who are messaging each other, which is based, if true.
Incredibly based.
Yeah, I know. One more reason to buy a Huawei phone. You're not going to get surveilled by the NSA.
It's a shame that in the United States we don't have the cell technology to all the 5G towers, because that makes the Huawei phone so much better. And then from my understanding, they also throttle on a carrier. So if you can get a carrier to even use a Huawei phone, they'll throttle your data. So they don't want us using Huawei phones, not at all.
Damn shame. But yeah, based if true that the organizers are using Huawei phones, because the Huawei just came out and said, they were using our phones. That's a hell of an advertisement.
Right. That's like ISIS running around in a more positive way with Toyota trucks.
And Telegram channels that I follow for military analysis were also saying that this meant that there were also double agents within Mossad. So if Mossad did know, because Mossad had said that they were expecting, that they weren't expecting, specifically they were expecting the opposite of military activity of concessions. And so I think there were double agents involved in feeding false information. Yeah, these are. Their intelligence is fallible, just like any other military's intelligence capabilities. I think this just speaks to the supreme arrogance of Israel. Just like I don't know if people in the audience have read Max Blumenthal's The Management of Savagery, but where intelligence was readily available to the 9/11 plotters, intelligence available to the FBI about the 9/11 plotters, and they just didn't act on it. This could be a similar this could be a similar situation, but Israel is a creation of that kind of atmosphere of Operation Whirlwind, Operation Cyclone. That's what it was. Operation Cyclone. Ruckus would know more about this than me. I'm not a military guy. Operation Cyclone in the Middle East of starting these insurgency conflicts like if Israel did have intelligence that this was going to happen, like the supreme arrogance that they could never break through, just is a huge blind spot for them. Which again, yeah, because when it's revealed over the weekend, just how many of their forces have no actual combat experience, how paranoid and demoralized they are, just how many thousands of people, Israeli citizens, are boarding planes to get out of the country, who have no who have no fighting spirit when it comes to defending, oh, but it's our ancestral homeland, and they're just getting onto planes and fleeing.
Well, those people, I mean, that's supposed to be real. They go to Israel, so they can go to a rave, or, they can go enjoy the bars in Tel Aviv or whatever. These people have no interest. You know who are the Jews that actually do believe in some form of ancestral homeland? The Orthodox Jews. And you know what they believe? Palestine should be, who rules the Holy Lands, not Israel. So,
Right.
If you want to see someone who actually cares about their ancestral homelands or whatever, it's not these secular, satanic, like I mean, they say they're Jews, but only ethnically, right? I mean, they don't read the Torah. I mean, I feel like Mar Yosef right now, but these people don't read the Torah. They don't believe in any of this stuff at all. And well, for that all being said, I just want to have a little personal message real quick to Mar Yosef. Him and me don't really get along much, but I hope you're okay. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, we must close ranks and have unity within their infrared adjacent, all infrared adjacent creators and minds. Because
to be clear, Mar Yosef lives in Israel, for listeners that may not know that.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He's Israeli. He's an Orthodox Jew, but he's Israeli. So, he's right on the ground. And I'm assuming people have heard from him. I don't know because I don't follow him on Twitter. But, Mar Yosef is on the grounds and somewhere in Israel right now. And, we should hope and pray for his safety, just because he's Israeli doesn't necessarily mean he's the same like of a lot of these others. Like I said, he's Orthodox Jew, so it's a very different conversation in the regards of Mar Yosef than a lot of these other settlers in Israel.
Yeah, and so if anyone has heard from Mar Yosef, we should check up on him. I haven't interacted with him personally, but I know
he's got a lot of
he's
got a lot of love in the community. He has a lot of clout, so people know who he is.
But the what I was saying about the arrogance of the Israeli government. Like, if they did have inside knowledge about this chaos that has been unfolding, that it would have been the similar kind of situation like with 9/11 intelligence, where this like supreme arrogance just blinded them to the fact that that any of these people would like actually make good on their threats. And Ruckus in the comments is saying, if it brings up a good point, is why we should really be like we should really think this through, of like, oh yeah, cheering on getting those terrorists, getting them good. Like, we have to see how that affects us. That's going to be used against us. Like he's saying, if it starts as Hamas sleepers, do not be surprised when they start wearing MAGA gear to justify martial law and officially determine Trump supporters are equated to the evils of Hamas in their minds. Like, yeah, that's what happens after 9/11 with the demonization of Muslims and the mass surveillance state that came about because of it. That's being used against us.
Which would be incredibly ironic too, because we know a lot of these MAGA folks, they likely do support Israel, right? And to watch how quickly something like that got utilized against them, like, it would probably shock a lot of their minds, and might be it's a terrible experience. I don't want them to go through that, obviously, but it might be something that might help them. Oh, Israel's not our ally, like that, and then maybe that'll start clicking for them.
That's my theory. I posted about this on the Barracks Twitter channel. That the first of I put like in my deeper analysis of Al-Aqsa flood, comparing it to the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. I had made 3 predictions. One, that the United States would immediately get involved to escalate the conflict with money and bombs, which is happening. Like the Pentagon is already finalizing AIDS packages, and there are like, let alone like sending, like work aircraft carriers to the region. So like that's already come true. And the last 2, which these are, so hold me to this if I'm wrong or if I'm correct. Hold me to these last 2 predictions. That U.S. popular opinion of the conflict will massively shift, just like the Tet Offensive marked a massive shift in popular opinion of the Vietnam War, where the people of the United States just became war fatigued and as a whole against Vietnam. I see that happening with support of Israel and the Israeli occupation. This fatigue of Zionism overall. And the last prediction, that this will cost Biden the re-election, just like the Tet Offensive was one of the many reasons going into Lyndon Johnson not getting re-elected. I like already Biden is having a hell of a time trying to secure a re-election, not just because he's senile, not just because Trump is far and away more popular than he is, not just because of inflation, and this is one more thing that is going to contribute to that. So that's going to be a third prediction of mine, is that on top of Ukraine, now Israel, that this is going to cost him re-election.
No,
so
what
hold
should
me
be
to
interesting?
this.
Yeah. Well, what will be interesting to see is, will we keep hitting the war drums for Ukraine as we're dumping now billions into Israel? Or are we really going to actually, sit here and try to fight this 2-front war against the multipolar world? Like, it seems crazy that the imperialists, don't recognize that Ukraine is not a winnable at this point. Or, I mean, they don't have the manufacturing base even. How do you continue to supply Israel and Ukraine? I mean, we right now are freaking, I forget the type of missile, but it's what they were putting, what Ukrainians are using to try to knock down like Russian air vehicles, whether it be drones or missiles or whatever the case might be, right? Well, I mean, we're running out of them. We had to give clusters in missions because we were running out of those supplies. We have no manufacturing base. How in the world is the United States going to be able to continue a 2-front war? Like, obviously, they should stop funding Ukraine, right? That would, like, the only way they could realistically keep doing this for Israel, at least in my mind, right?
Yeah, and Nazi Germany had to fight a 2-front war like in those last few years, and the inevitable victory that they thought was coming didn't stop them from fighting that 2-front war with the Soviets and then with Western Europe. So never underestimate the supreme arrogance of globalists. Yeah. I knew Ruckus would know about Operation Cyclone. This is another part of Max Blumenthal's The Management of Savagery, just going into how this legacy of the U.S. funding insurgent groups in the Middle East led to the rise of Donald Trump, which is why we're seeing him now lean in on this rhetoric of Hamas's it's so funny. This and I'm now just realizing this post of his on Telegram is a combination of the two issues which made him so popular during his 2016 campaign was the Mexico border and Islamophobia. He's combining the two things. It's like now it's not just we need to have a Muslim ban and there are rapists coming over the border. It's the Muslim rapists are coming over the border.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But that really just goes to show you, this is the rhetoric he's doubling down on. This is the uncomfortable reality, I think, for a lot of us MAGA communists, is that we are going to have to outwardly reject Donald Trump going forward, and we need to act as the leaders, which is something I remember you were saying, Teray. We need to act as the leaders for MAGA, showing what direction that we really need to go in. And it's not going to war with Mexico. It's not going to war with Israel. It's not going to war with China. The real path forward for the United States and the American people is in the basis of minding our own damn business and rebuilding this country. That's what we need to focus on. And if Trump would have just stuck to, the quantum leap, building new American cities, and making sure that, children had the opportunity to, exist in this world, to rebuild a new baby boom in this country, things that America really needs right now, we would keep cheering Donald Trump on. And we'll still praise him, I guess, when he still does those good things. But this isn't our leader. This isn't our hero. We need to be our own heroes. The MAGA working class needs to be its own hero and to rise above this political system that Donald Trump, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't from the beginning, actually fighting the globalists, actually fighting the deep state. But it's very clear to us all right now, with him being so gung-ho with the war with Israel, so gung-ho, with the border, which is, inevitably going to lead to him calling for a war with Mexico. That's the situation we are seeing. And, Trump is just he's nothing more than an icon. He is not our leader. He's not our hero.
Yeah, it's just because he was like the only president in recent memory who didn't start a new war doesn't mean like he won't do that in the future. Like when he's the one who started this conversation about invading Mexico, past performance is not an indicator of future results. So I have to 100% take him at his word that he has plans to invade Mexico, and I can't allow that. I'm not gonna sit here and turn this country into and have Afghanistan right on our doorstep. Let's turn Mexico into Afghanistan. I'm not gonna let that happen. So if I have to make my own prediction come true and reverse this trend of supporting Zionism, we are going to have to be really unpopular for the next several months and continue to push for that truth that this is the primary contradiction. This is the primary issue driving all other issues in this country is the war machine. It's impoverishing our country. It's devastating the world outside of our country, and just like we saw with 2001 with 9/11, the main source of blowback of security threats to this country come from our own war machine. So we need to push back on this escalating Israel conflict just as hard as we did with the Ukraine conflict, if not harder, because we're
outnumbered.
We're outnumbered.
I mean, look, when you log on, and I will say, I'll give a minuscule credit to some of these leftists, and we'll see how, as time keeps forward, if they stay consistent with this, But I've been seeing even people like Hassan Piker, driving this home that this is bullshit, right? Seeing people like the DSA, I mean, even Vosh, which is like fucking bizarre that on weird bedfellows, right? Like in this exact moment, we don't know what goes forward from here. We don't know how consistent these people are if they start seeing Palestine win and they're no longer the underdogs. We'll see how quickly they change their tune, but at least in this moment, it's leftist, and then it's MAGA communist, and then a scattering a few good solid libertarians, which they still exist, and a few good like paleo conservatives, but they're very few and in between right now.
No, too many libertarians are, again, libertarian thought leaders who are just outing themselves as right-wing grifters, like Steven Crowder,
Yep.
and they are saying that they're doing at best they're doing this both sides dance. It's like, we need to condemn
Like
Israel
Michael
for crimes.
Tracy.
Yeah. But we also need to condemn Palestinian fighters for holding hostages. Like, no, the only and like you said, these soft leftists, we'll see how long their support lasts. Like the people in New York who are holding signs that say "Queers for Palestine," we'll see how long they hold their support for Palestine when Palestine gets the support of Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and start whooping Israel's ass in a serious, you think 700 people is like a shocking. It's going to escalate. Let's see how long the support lasts, because that's the reality of war. It escalates and people die. Like, this is going to get worse. But the only people I think who will really understand that are militant Marxist-Leninists who understand the Soviet Union had 22 million Soviets die to break the back of the Nazi war machine. Like, that was a necessity to actually liberate Europe from the Third Reich. Like, that is the human cost. And I think it's just tankies who understand that that human cost is unavoidable. But one way or another, Palestine will be free. That's just a historical certainty. And people
Palestine will be free from the river to the
sea. So yeah, we got to get out of this. That's my final thought. We got to get out of this moralizing and really understand the material consequences of liberation and liberation struggles, because they affect us. So at the very least, stay out of it and don't be sending money or bombs to Israel. The Yankee Tanky, you got any final words before we close it out?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know things are rather confusing on my end of things. You don't know if I'm coming. You don't know if I'm going. What is the Yankee Tanky doing? Well, you can guarantee one thing and one thing only. I'm going to be in and out of this fight sporadically for the next few months. But I will be coming back every damn time with the same message. Fuck Israel! Up with Palestine! Up with China! Up with Israel! Up with the multipolar world! And eventually, it will be 1776 commencing again in the United States of America, and we will unite with the rest of the multipolar world to destroy the globalists who stole the United States from the rightful owners, folks like my family who established this country, that came here on the Mayflower, that fought in both sides of the Civil War and in the American Revolution, that fought in the coal mines of West Virginia, that fought to destroy the globalists, to destroy slavery, to destroy the oppressive system. I will always be in this fight one way or another, and I will keep fighting that fight. And I expect you, each and every one of you, to do the same.
Hell yeah. There you have it, folks. Clip it, wrap it up, put a bow on it. For now, we thank you so much for tuning in. We thank the Yankee Tanky for shocking us with his semi-comeback out of semi-retirement. But we some final housekeeping. You got to make sure to follow the Barracks on Telegram, where you can get the news aggregation firsthand before it lands anywhere else. The discussion points that we'll be talking about on Twitter and on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Twitter if you're not following us there already. Make sure to follow the Yankee Tanky at Bad Burrito Boy on X.com. BOI, Bad Burrito Boy. For now, we are hitting the 2-hour mark, so we're not going to keep you here much longer. But with that, folks, that's all we got. We're out.